A crise chegou. E agora? Agora você se informa, você pesquisa, você vê os números, você tenta ver o que vem amanhã. Agora você acompanha as lives e conteúdos diários do BTG Pactual, com grandes nomes do mercado sobre o agora. Disponíveis até para quem não é cliente. Acesse btgpactualdigital.com/lives.
Boa noite a todos, bem-vindos a mais uma live do BTG Pactual. Hoje tenho a grande honra de entrevistar um grande amigo meu, Micky Malka, o fundador da Ribbit, que na minha visão é o venture capital mais respeitado do mundo quando se fala sobre fintechs. A Ribbit tem uma missão muito clara, que na visão da Ribbit eles querem mudar o mundo das finanças, change the world of finance. Eles têm uma tese de um estilo de investimento que eles desenvolvem as teses focadas em tecnologias móveis, em empresas que são focadas no consumidor. Eles têm investimentos em empresas que fazem empréstimos pessoais, seguros, pagamentos, criptoativos, empresas que prestam serviços para empresas, pequenas e médias empresas, infraestrutura financeira e wallets. A Ribbit foi fundada em 2012, hoje administra em torno de 4 bilhões de dólares, tem mais de 70 investimentos, 25 unicórnios, Micky? 25 unicorns?
25 unicórnios.
Então, eu acho que o Micky deve ter o recorde mundial de unicórnios, acho que são poucas pessoas no mundo que podem falar que investiram em 25 empresas que se tornaram unicórnios. E algumas das empresas que talvez vocês conheçam, que fazem parte do portfólio da Ribbit, que já são públicas, você tem nos Estados Unidos a Coinbase, a Credit Karma, Revolut, Robinhood, Wealthfront, Zapo, e empresas ligadas ao Brasil, que também muitos de vocês devem conhecer. A Ribbit é investidora na Brex, na Conta Azul, no Guia Bolso e no Nubank. Então, como eu já disse, para mim é uma honra tremenda. Eu tenho o prazer de sentar em alguns conselhos com o Micky. Eu brinco com ele que toda vez que eu converso com ele é uma aula, ele abre a minha cabeça, ele me mostra coisas que eu não estou vendo, me conta histórias que estão acontecendo no mundo que eu não estava acompanhando, no mundo de fintech. Então é sempre uma aula quando eu tenho a oportunidade de conversar com eles, e a gente achou que seria muito bacana poder dividir isso com vocês. Então agora eu vou mudar para inglês, que apesar do Micky ser venezuelano, falar um pouco de português, ele pediu para que fosse inglês, então ele falou que ele ia demorar muito para se expressar.
Obrigado, so, Roberto.
Thank you very much once again for joining us. You have such a fantastic personal story, basically your full life as an entrepreneur and linked to fintech. I mean, you were there in the first internet explosion in the late 90s, early 2000s. Could you share with our audience a bit of your personal story, because it's truly fantastic. I mean, you were an entrepreneur right out of high school in Venezuela, and a fantastic story from there. Could you share it with our audience?
Sure. Thank you, Roberto, for having me. You said that you learn a lot from me when we get together. It's mutual. I get to learn a lot from you and the way you build Pactual into one of the best firms in Brazil. So I just think it's one of those stories that my mother gave me some memories when I was a kid. Many years when I turned 40, she gave me all these pictures and letters, and there was this letter I had written to the tooth fairy when I lost my tooth, and it was in 1983. And it said that I would like the tooth fairy to give me dollars because I didn't trust the Bolivar. And this was
visionary.
6 weeks before the first devaluation in Venezuela in 30 years. So I just think there was some understanding of how money worked. I started as a broker dealer, a corretora, when I was 17, when I was finishing high school. It was a good time in Venezuela and Argentina were the two best markets in Latin America. Brazil and Mexico were not the best markets in the early 90s. And we grew really, really fast and did very well. But then when in 96, I was in the US in one of my trips, and I saw an ad in a magazine for E-Trade. The first time I had seen an ad that says, hey, you can open your online account and trade for $19.99 a trade. And it got me really curious what was that concept of online trading and direct to consumer. So I visited E-Trade, I understand what they were doing. And then I went back and wanted to build and wanted to use the internet. I sort of thought that the internet was going to be the future of how finance was going to be delivered. So decided to start an online broker, convert my business into an online broker. Back then, there was a company in Brazil, NetTrade, who was doing it out of Brazil. Sergio was the founder, and in 97, 98, and I was living in Venezuela, and there was this guy in Argentina doing the same thing, and we all decided one way or the other. We ended up all merging and building what became Patagon. So
yeah,
so you're right.
For those that are too young to know, was the successful internet financial market stories in the late 90s, right?
Yes, and I think there's a lot of lessons. So when people say that Ribbit has been a success in the last 8 years, they forget to think that it was a 27-year overnight success. We were just too early in the 1990s.
Yeah, but you guys also had the mentality of good investors, because you sold to Santander for a huge price. I remember at the time it was something like $600-700 million. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it was closer to 800 million, and we sold in March of 2000. We were 26 years old. We thought it was the best. It was going to be a good success, and we thought it was going to be much bigger, to be honest. And then the whole market of .com crash came, so we sold right at the peak of the market. So it made us look very smart, but we were actually very lucky.
Well, better. It's always good to have luck, right?
Completely.
And the more you work, the luckier you are. It's amazing.
Yes.
But after that, you were still in Venezuela. And then what happened?
Then, so we built this bank. Santander took it over, and then they decided that they wanted to merge with their local operations. They had just bought, the same time that business in Brazil, they bought the big bank, Banco Bos. And so they were busy with very large mergers. And I found out they had this abandoned banking license in Europe. So we worked really hard to convince them to let us build an online bank in Europe. It was called Open Bank. Still is. It's a bank in Spain. We got a chance to build it. I moved to Madrid. I live there. But when my time was finished, I was not going to go back to Venezuela in 2003. And I decided with my wife, we were married for a year. We said, let's go to Brazil. We had met Lula in the elections. We didn't think he was not Chavez. And we decided to spend some months in Brazil and take some time off. And 60 days later, we were starting a business in Brazil with another friend of you, with Michael. Another bank. So we started a bank. Before the mobile phone, we thought that we still had this vision. It's the same consistency vision. Financial services should be accessible to anybody, anywhere in the world. And before that, you can only do it through branches, and only the high-end people who had computers could do it on the internet. It was not massive. So we thought, how do we make it massive? And back then, before the mobile phone got really scale, we built an entire bank to run into a point-of-sale device. So you could put the whole technology, and we use a model in Brazil called Correspondente Bancario, and we opened thousands. It was a business called Banco Lemon, and we opened thousands of Correspondentes Bancarios all over Brazil, offering banking services to the unbanked in the outskirts of the big cities or in the small states around Brazil. So I lived in Brazil for 3 years. I had to visit every state in the Nordeste, every big city, every favela in Rio and Sao Paulo. I have friends all over those areas. And we learn a lot about how to deliver financial products.
And then after that, you sold Lemon Bank?
Yeah, we sold it to Banco do Brasil. They bought the business. It became a mission for them that they wanted to drive traffic from the branches to outside the branches because the branches were not scaling for them. So we sold the business to Banco do Brasil in 2009, I think it was. So I lived in Brazil for 3 years, and then I moved with my family to Silicon Valley in 2007, where I have been since then. So I've been here since now 12 years.
So then you moved to Silicon Valley, but you still did another fintech startup before you opened Ribbit.
Yeah. So and again, it's they always say that you better be lucky than smart, but the worst thing for an entrepreneur is also to be the worst thing for an entrepreneur is to be too early or be too late. Mm-hmm. Luck and timing matters more than anything. We came here, we had an idea that people were not gonna, in the future, they were gonna be paying from their phones. Everything. The phone was gonna be your embedded, intelligent transaction engine. So we started to build.
Kodak was still $1 billion company, right? People were not convinced that we were gonna go this way.
Completely, and this is before the iPhone came out. Mm-hmm. We still had the smartphone was not scalable, but we knew it was coming. So we built our entire company to do online mobile payments, so people could actually pay in retail with their mobile phones. And we built a whole technology stack. We scaled it. We had traction. We raised money. We were scaling and building the business, but it was really ahead of the time. It's literally what Apple Pay and Google Pay do today around the world. We had to change the model. We became the first wallet when the iPhones came out and the Google Androids came out. We became the first wallet software that ran on phones. And then we sold that company in 2012 to a public company in Silicon Valley called LifeLock now, back then, which is now Symantec. So that's when I started Ribbit.
So you had a almost 20-year career as an entrepreneur in fintechs and startups, knowing the pains, knew the fintech world, financial markets, had been lived in 3-4 different countries, had been regulated by many regulators. So you really understood. Yes. And then said, well, it's time to put money to work. So you set out Ribbit. 2012, you have a fantastic story as an entrepreneur, but you were never an investor. But you were successful in raising your first fund. If I'm not mistaken, it was around $100 million, right?
Yes.
And now you've grown it to $4 billion with phenomenal returns to your investors. What are the different theses that has guided Ribbit to be so successful in the last 8 years?
I think we're not yet that successful. I think we're going to be much more in the next decade, if you ask me. But in the first, what I will say that we were again lucky to time. This time the timing and the luck really came together at the best moment. Was we started to realize that there were going to be financial new brands being built, that consumers around the world were ready to embrace transacting and trusting new brands. And in financial services, a brand is what matters the most. It's what people trust the most. So if you like the brand and you trust them with your money, there's no better description of a successful brand. And we thought the window had opened. We thought the mobile phones was going to be the channel to compete against the incumbents. We thought that unstructured data that you could pick up via the phone was going to be the best way to do it. And it was going to be a global phenomenon like we hadn't seen in decades. So instead of becoming an entrepreneur of one company, I set up to say, how do I leverage this knowledge and we can do it worldwide? So we time well certain trends. We time well the consumer willingness to try new brands, the adoption of mobile phones and mobile apps, and unstructured data. Those three levers were the ones that gave us a chance to build and back some of the best companies around the world built in the last decade. So we invest in. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we look at the world and say, okay, there's the things people do with money is you have to make payments. Payment is an important part of your world, but people don't think about payments. That's not the language consumers think about. They're always buying. So it's a purchasing experience more than the payment. The payment is what happens when you purchase something. But we thought about personal finance. How do people find the right products? What do people buy? What they should be recommending to them? Lending, which is an important component of your personal finance. We thought about insurance. We believe that crypto was going to be the category down the road, 10, 20 years, that's going to be the biggest thing in financial services. So we wanted to be early and be able to play a game the same way we played a game on the internet from 1997 to now. And so we've been
you bought
investing.
Bitcoin when it was below 100, is that it? So
Yes,
that everybody
yes. Well, as a Venezuelan who will have anything but bolivares, you learn very early that you will buy anything that you can hold and no one can take from you. So yes, I was playing with Bitcoin when it was worth $5 and it crashed to 10 cents. I thought it was over.
And Micky, so you have over 70 investments in 6 continents. So that means you have significant investments in Latin America, India, China, Europe, the US. But they're all across the same themes, which you just mentioned. How are these investments the same, and how are they different given the geographic location and the local culture of people? What are the common threads, and what makes them different across the regions?
I think the common thread of all of them is user experience. You are trying world class to make an experience feel so much better than anything that exists in the market. It is like the passion of the team, of the founder, the culture of the company about what is the driver that makes you win. And it typically has to start by understanding how do you build a world class experience in a financial product, which is not that easy, but it's not impossible either. Mm-hmm. The second thing is transparency. Most financial products are very difficult to understand. They hide a lot of information. They don't give you full transparency on what they really mean. You know, I still have credit cards from many different countries that I lived, and I still cannot understand the statements when they charge me interest or not. Like they are designed to be complicated animals. So how to simplify and bring transparency to the user experience, and then the belief in the brand. How much of a strong value does the team give to building a brand that people will trust? So those are the 3 things that are the common pattern anywhere in the world. When you go and you find them, and you find these rare, unique teams or companies or businesses that have this, they typically find a good way of winning. That is the most simple equation that is very common around the world. The other thing that is very common, Roberto, is that the consumer needs are very similar. And nothing more clear than during this COVID pandemic, the behavior in the consumer, if you're in China, India, Europe, Brazil, or the US or Mexico, it's exactly the same. The same things that they were spending money on, they stopped spending, and other things like fashion and clothing and luxury items and travel. And then the same things, groceries and e-commerce and subscription services were more, no matter where you were in the world, gaming or content or information. The same way people manage their money, they started to look for ways to reduce their expense and look for ways to invest it better. So they were searching for better ways to invest. They were searching for better insurance or cheaper insurance to lower their monthly running cost of life. So I would say those similarities, it's crazy around the world. They're very, very similar patterns. Mm-hmm. What is different is it's the timing of the needs. They're very different. You cannot be too focused on building lending products in an economy that is in a recession. It's hard to lend when the economy is not growing. You can build the engines, but it's really hard to lend. So you have to think about the right conditions. Regulatory is very different. Some countries have very clear regulatory frameworks on how to behave with fintechs. Brazil is very advanced on their fintech regulation. They have been
very fintech friendly, right?
very fintech friendly. There's other countries that have not been fintech friendly and make it really difficult. So you have to navigate in other ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Customer experience, transparency, create a fantastic brand.
Yes. You're a good student.
So, Micky, end 2019, you guys are doing extremely well. You had just raised Fund 5, plus raised a high conviction fund at the same time. I don't know, 50 times oversubscribed or something like that. Crazy. And then all is fine. And you get to December and you have global investments and you get coronavirus in China, then Europe, then the US, and now LATAM. How has this pandemic affected your portfolio companies? And have they all been affected the same way, or are they being affected in different ways?
So they've been affected in different ways, and they've all been affected the same way in one special thing, which is no matter where you are in the world, this pandemic has accelerated the velocity of digital money by 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be hard to go back. It is proven that that economies can survive with bank branches network closed for 60 days. It is proven that paper money can be completely replaced by digital money. More and more. It's working in many countries. It has accelerated the way governments want to regulate it because they want more channels to get money in the hands of people and businesses faster to reactivate economies. So in the US, they're still mailing checks on the mail to people.
Which is unbelievable, right?
Which is unbelievable. But now the Treasury Department is talking about sending money through wallets for the next check. So it's fast tracking stuff that was not happening before. So I think that's the global trend that is very positive. And some public stocks are reflecting that. If you look at stocks of companies like PayPal or Square or Tencent, they are all reflecting that momentum, that shift going forward, because they're taking advantage of it. What has happened to our portfolio is that it suffered. If you were not in the wealth management space, all of our companies in wealth management have done really well. They've benefited from this moment because consumers are at home. They're spending time on their internet, on their phone. They're listening to this conference right now.
Yeah,
so they're learning.
That's exactly what we're feeling. That this pandemic has accelerated the trends.
So for wealth management, it's definitely accelerated the trends of digital experiences and digital search and content and generating content and finding the right financial products for people. It has really hurt the lending companies because it's hard to lend. You don't know if you have capital to lend. You don't know if the person you're lending to is employed or unemployed, or he will be unemployed in 60 days, or will be employed with a less salary. There's also these unknowns around lending companies that make it really difficult for them.
So the truth is that when you get to a financial crisis like this one, the fintechs have the same pains and benefits as the traditional banks, right? The traditional banks are suffering with their credit portfolios, and at the same time they're seeing their digital business explode, but they still have the costs of the branches, which the fintechs don't, but they're more capitalized. So it's funny.
That's exactly right.
At this time it's more or less similar. And
it is for now.
Yeah, and it's probably going to many of the companies will probably need to cut costs, will probably need to raise capital. And what advice are you giving to all these founders, which are great entrepreneurs, which had been living in a world where the investors were requesting of them growth at any cost? We were talking about, it's a joke. Are we shifting from unicorns to camels, right? Camels that can go in any scenario. And so what advice are you giving your entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are having to face a difficult moment, might have to raise capital? And how are you planning to deal with it? Because at the same time, this can be a great opportunity to double up, which is something that Ribbit does, right? When you believe in the thesis, you believe in entrepreneur, you double up. So what are your advice are you giving, and how are you thinking about this?
So depends the kind of company. If you are a very early stage company and you're early, the macro doesn't really affect you too much for the next couple of years. You just have to heads down, keep building, don't lose concentration, don't go crazy spending your money in marketing too early. Just have the right product, take your time. And we have a group of companies that fit that size. There's another set of companies that are a little bit later stage than that. They are not profitable. They have been building a company for 4 or 5 years. They have some traction, some momentum, but they're stuck where they don't go and raise more money. They may run out of money in the next 12 to 18 months. In those cases, we're suggesting it is time to either merge, reduce your cost dramatically and extend the runway and delay your product, or simply shut down. You're going to be in a difficult situation for the next 12 months because the number of unknown variables is just too high right now. We just don't know how this plays out if you're in the middle. If you're in the well-funded category and you have capital to last for 2-3 years, you have a growing business. Our message has been sit down and revisit your business every 60 days because this is changing the way people behave. Make sure that you're changing your business to adequate it to whatever it needs to be adequated. Don't believe that you're going to roll over and this is going to be just the same way it was before. Be vigilant about your service, about your customer, about what's changing in their behavior. And if you can delay the recruiting of new people or the marketing, delay it. It's going to be fine. No one's going to score you if you have a bad 2020.
And knowing you, I know that you pass the 3 different messages the same way, and in a way that the entrepreneur does not feel offended, which is good, right? It's better to be honest. And I think I read in your letter, we will look for opportunities. We will be open-hearted, but we will take the right decision, right? Which is exactly what you expect from somebody who's managing your money, right?
Yeah, I think you don't have to. You can never take this personal. This is we are not right. We're never right. We're mostly wrong, but we at least express our opinion very directly. It's part of our brand.
Yeah. One of the things which I thought fantastic, Micky, is that in this pandemic, since you guys have access to companies all over the world and data all over the world, you anonymize this. I mean, you guys use a ton of data analytics to do your investments.
Yeah.
You anonymized all the data you were getting from your companies, and you created something called Ribbit Pulse, which you then allowed your investors to see, which is basically showing the trends across the world. What are some of the insights that you think are worth sharing from the audience, from what you're seeing from the companies you have in the countries at different stages of this pandemic?
So one of the trends is that e-commerce at least has double or triple as your total spend dollars anywhere in the world. And once the work from home is free in countries that already has a more flexible system, it doesn't go down that fast.
Asia, right?
It stayed that high. It really stayed that high. People are feeling more and more comfortable about buying most stuff online, even on more regular stuff.
And then China being the one that's further ahead. I mean,
yes.
A lot of people talk about V-shaped recovery, W recovery, L, whatever letter you want to use, U. What is the data showing any insight there for you as to what a recovery should look like?
The Wall Street Journal, I think you had an article yesterday, the day before. They didn't talk about V or W or U anymore. They talked about the swish, the Nike logo. Like it goes down like this and then it goes up like that. So I don't know. So yes, on China, the data we have is the following. So in general, the spend on the economy is spend on consumer is back. It's been, we're on May 12th, so we're talking about 22 weeks to recuperate some of the spend. But the categories have dramatically shifted. So travel is still down 50 to 60%. as a category. Transportation, the Uber of China, Didi, is still down. They're not back at where they were. Restaurants and coffee places are still down because they're not all working at full. They haven't made it back to where they were. But other categories are up dramatically. Like up because more of the spend is going to these categories: deliveries, e-commerce, and those are substituting. So overall, dollars yuan to yuan, it's almost back to where it was, flat or -5, +5. So it's in the range, but it's definitely changed the way people are spending money now.
I guess there's some good news there, right? That at least consumer spend, once confidence picks up, goes back to the same level. But as you said, there's going to be underneath that. There's going to be a lot of movement.
A lot of movement.
Is it fair to say that probably this during Corona will last longer and will cause a lot of, let's say, changes within different categories and behaviors, like you mentioned, and that these will continue after Corona once you have a vaccine? Or do you think that once we have a vaccine, some of the acceleration we have might go back? Or do you think it continues accelerating? Do you have a view on that? For what does a post-Corona, once you have the vaccine, or, I mean, we talked about the trends that accelerated. We all agree that it's 5 to 10 years. There's shifts now. But what about afterwards? Does that continue accelerating? Or does it go to normal growth? Or does it take a step back? Do you have a view?
Yes, I do. So, when we were pitching Patagon, raising money in 1998 to investors in in America to back some entrepreneurs in Latin America, we told them, we had this story where we said, there's going to be a day that you're going to walk with your kids in the street, and they're going to see this very nice building with big columns and big doors, and it's going to be empty, and they're going to ask you what was in that building, and you were going to say, oh, a bank branch. That's where the branches used to be. They made them big and important to show you that they were trusted. I think bank branching is over. I think that is not coming back. And I think we're going to see a decade of all the banks around the world shutting down branches and growing more digital. And I don't think it's coming back in any shape or form. This has accelerated that trend dramatically.
Do you think this is true even for countries that have lower levels of education? For example, something that happened in Brazil, which makes people question what will happen, is, so the government distributed 600 reais to, let's say, 50 million people, grossly speaking.
Yes.
And they had to download the app and they could get it in their account. But people were going to the branches because they could not manage how to do it in the app, which is basically a bit of just level of education. Do you think that this is true even in countries like Brazil or India, which have different levels of education than the US, Europe, or China, for example?
100%. So in India, for example, yes, so Roberto, I'm convinced, and it will be one-time learning, and then they will never go back to the branch to ask that question again. In India, there was the president of the Central Bank of India, the Reserve Bank of India, was on national TV on day 10 of the pandemic, of the shutdown of the country over there, on TV, national TV, saying, people, please use your phone, use the codes on your phones to go pay. Don't use paper anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And in India, 450 million people are already paying with their phones their daily spends. And that number was less than 50 million 3 years ago.
Well, 450 is a lot of people.
So it goes really fast. It's very simple. And we see it in crypto too. In crypto, it's the same thing. People holding Bitcoins around the world is growing in the millions every month, and it's becoming easier and easier. And the apps today are 10 times easier than an app 5 years ago, like 100 times easier. And all of these use cases will not go back. We will have digital money. Paper money will not be around 10 years from now. That's my expectation.
So I'm glad you touched on cryptocurrencies, because I mean, this is something that you have been a big fan since the get-go, just not of cryptocurrencies, but of blockchain-based networks. I still remember, I mean, you know this, right? BTG Pactual was the first bank in the world to issue a security token offering.
Yeah.
And we did this because of a conversation I had with you. And I remember we were talking, I said, but forget it, Mickey, investment banking will not change. And you turned to me and you said, are you crazy? Have you not seen how many ICOs happened this year? If you don't look at securitization or tokenization, this can, or it might or might not be the future of investment banking, but you need to dominate this technology. And we set out to do that exactly because of the conversation we had. So, and not only that, but Ribbit was also one of the original, I think, 20 investors in Libra, right, from Facebook. So let's talk about cryptocurrencies. You're a huge fan, and you just said that paper money will not exist, but digital money will. Why will people not use digital dollars or digital reais? And why will they use digital Bitcoins or Ethereum, which have huge volatility in the currency that they use to consume?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's two different questions. So I think governments, because of their nature, they tend to be slower unless they have a very clear mission, like China has right now with their e-yuan, which is their electronic RMB, which they launched last month. It's the first blockchain government currency in the world. And I think they're the beginning of probably a 10, 20-year trend for all governments around the world to go to electronic money. I see that. To me, it's very clear. Now, Bitcoin is something different.
Between an e-real and just a real that you have in your digital wallet.
It's gonna be more. It could be smart money. So let me put it this way. You were telling that the government gave, how much was it? 600 reais?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine that because everybody has an electronic wallet on their phone, government can decide if you have filed for unemployment or you make less than 1,000 reais a month or 2,000 reais a month, then we will credit you 600 reais that you can only use for groceries.
Okay. So you have an extra layer that limits the use of that currency. Either
extra layer to the limit that can help you on the way you distribute the currency to who gets it. An extra layer to the way you can spend the money. You can give reais to your sons, and you can program it that they cannot use it for alcohol. And it's reais, it's in their wallet, but if they go to buy alcohol, they will not be able to pay. Mm-hmm. So you just create a layer around money that you just cannot get today. And that is and in the same time, it's completely traceable. So it has all the characteristics of any government that wants to trace money and avoid corruption and avoid tax evasion, and has all the benefits of the programmable components around it. This will take some time to happen. This is not going to happen overnight. But that's in the future. The U.S. should not have to mail paper checks to people. They just said, if anybody is to file for unemployment, you give me your CPF, we have it. Programmable money gets allocated in your wallet.
And do you think that necessarily this has to be blockchain, or this can be, let's say, if you use the technology, it could be centralized at the Fed or at the Central Bank of Brazil?
It could be. It's blockchain is just a nice word to say database. The way databases are building data. In the case of China, it's a centralized blockchain by the Central Bank of China.
Yes.
Right. Now, in that environment, when we go all digital, and you believe that value is digital, then we think there is value to having the equivalent of a gold, the equivalent of a decentralized asset that no government can control on your behalf, that you can transfer freely and that you can hold in any shape or form and move around the world for free.
The most famous is Bitcoin, right?
That's exactly the point with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Which would be an electronic gold.
It will be an electronic gold. If you believe that physical money disappears, then physical gold is there. It's going to be there forever. But I think there will be a category on the digital realm of the same characteristics of what gold has, which has had for thousands of years. And the only one right now that has it is Bitcoin. So we think Bitcoin can become the biggest asset in the digital world for finance, or in the monetary, in the wealth preservation asset category.
Yeah, especially in countries like Venezuela that have hyperinflation, or countries that.
But yes, but you don't have to go much further. I mean, when you have America, I'm proud to be American citizen now. I'm happy to live here. I'm very honored and humble. But they just printed 30% of their GDP in new money overnight, and they're going to print another 20% in the next year. So some people are saying, I love the dollar. I got nothing against the dollar, but I would love to not be debased every day. I thought about it as a Venezuelan because that's how I grew up. But it's happening more and more around the world. In Brazil, they talk about debt to GDP to be 100% next year or in 2 years from now. So
yeah, so that's why you're seeing a big rally in cryptocurrency.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Are you still giving the boys or girls you go to bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, bitcoins?
I do. I still do. It's the same. I tell them that this either pays for their college when they are 25 or it's worth zero, but it's not going to be anything in the middle. So they have to call me when they turn 25 and let me know. The first person that I gave it to is graduating college next week. And he held his bitcoins from the day I gave it to him when he was 13 until now he's 21, 22 maybe. And he has saved enough money to pay 3 out of his 4 years of college.
That's a great gift, huh?
That's a great gift.
And what about Libra, Micky? What are your thoughts on Libra? I mean, there was a lot of backlash from governments. It's kind of a bit on hold. What are your thoughts there?
It's coming. It's coming in the next. We will see Libra live in the next 12 months. Libra is an example. What you are starting to see is the large technology companies understand the importance of financial services in their architecture, in their services. And Libra will be a stable coin, meaning it's pegged to any currency. There will be one Libra dollar, which is pegged to $1, one Libra euro, pegged to a euro. There will be eventually one Libra real, pegged to one real. And once you convert, think about it as a transition between paper to fully centralized, government centralized currencies. Stable coins are the hybrid in the middle. They are
a way to transfer money without having to use SWIFT, for example.
Correct. And a way to transfer money between persons in real time, anywhere in the world, no matter the currency, because everything is being settled on the back, but it still is backed by local currency that is held some bank in some form of cash or deposits. And this is how go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And this, I think, is a transition between the extreme of what China has done, which is go test completely their blockchain proprietary currency, and where the rest of the world is, which is they're not there yet.
Yeah, the truth is, I mean, the world will always be some combination of all these different instruments, right? It's never one size fits all.
Correct.
Micky, I promised you we would keep this to the time limit we agreed. I mean, for me, it has been another phenomenal
likewise
learning experience. Any words of wisdom you want to share with our viewers before we depart?
So I think that the most important thing I will tell you today about the way we're looking at investing around the world is a very macro thesis. I'm going to give it to you in 1 minute, so just for you to think about it as you think and follow the space for the next 10 years. The world has 35 financial services companies that are worth more than $100 billion. And only 2 out of 35 are digital. That is PayPal in America and Ant Financial in China. That's it. There's no other more. I ask yourself the question, how many of the largest financial institutions in the world 10 years from now, in 2030, when we're having this call again, are completely digital? And my guess is that it's more than 15. So the question is, how many convert from physical to digital and succeed at it? And how many are growing from this digital era and become those companies 10 years from now? That's the one question. The second question is, Bitcoin as an asset, it can go to zero, but it can be as valuable as gold, because gold is the ultimate reserve of value in the physical form. It's worth, I don't know, $160 billion right now, the market cap of Bitcoin. It can go to zero, or it can be worth $9 trillion or more. Where do you find asymmetric opportunities where you know your risk on the downside and on potential upside? And that is the kind of mentality that we keep making every investment decision we make every day.
Fantastic.
My word of wisdom.
Micky, the first time you told me this theory of yours of the company's worth $100 billion, we're working very hard here to try to be one of those. Hopefully in 10 years from now, BTG will be on your list.
I am sure it will be, because you're asking the right questions and you're doing the right execution. So congrats.
But Micky, thank you very much. Once again, a true honor, a great pleasure talking to you. Please send best to your family. And well, let's not wait another 10 years to do this. Maybe we can catch up sooner than that again with our audience.
Done. Prazer.
Thank you. Um abraço.
Take care. Um abraço. Tchau.
A crise chegou. E agora? Agora você se informa, você pesquisa, você vê os números, você tenta ver o que vem amanhã. Agora você acompanha as lives e conteúdos diários do BTG Pactual, com grandes nomes do mercado sobre o agora. Disponíveis até para quem não é cliente. Acesse btgpactualdigital.com/lives.